Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel for another video, and in catching up in the latest previews for 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000, let's get into some of the world changes that Games Workshop have shown off via Warhammer community. This video kicking off with the close combat phase, or the assault phase, whichever way you want to call it. And there have been some quite significant changes that will be coming with 11th. The first headline is engagement range. Now, engagement range is basically the distance between Model A and Model B when it comes to the close combat fisticuffs part. Now, previously it was generally an inch. You had some exceptions with certain weapons maybe, but it was usually always an inch. Now the engagement range is 2 inches. So, big plus. And you can't finish a move with engage. Another thing is you can't finish a move with an engagement range for enemy without charging. But crucially, you can now move through an enemy model's engagement phase in the movement phase. So, interesting changes there that might throw some wrenches or new tools in the tactical toolbox. But talking of charges, that brings us to one of the next big headline changes, and that is changes to the charge itself. Now, before, you used to have to select the unit you're going to charge and then roll. It's changing now. Instead, you roll first, and then you can declare a charge as long as there is at least one enemy unit within 12 inches. So the result of this is basically going to be a case of fewer failed charges happening, and the unit standing around kicking rocks because a charge move has been misjudged. So yeah. And I've explained it in the table here. I'll put a link to the article in the description of the video. So how I've explained it is charge. So eligible if your unit. So maximum distance is the charge roll. Eligible if your distance declared a charge this phase. Your movement moves as described within the movement section of the rules, which obviously will come when we see the full rules. Before moving, select one or more enemy units that are within 12 of your unit and within the maximum distance of your unit. Until the end of this move, each of those enemy units is a charge target. Okay, if you're with me here, now into the whilst moving section, the verbiage reads, each model must end its move closer to one or more charged targets. Each model that can end its move within 1 inch of one or more charged targets must do so. Each model that can end its move engaged with one or more charged targets must do so. And finally, in the after movement section, your unit must be engaged with all of the charged targets. Your unit cannot be engaged with one or more enemy units that are not charged targets. Until the end of a turn, each model in your unit has the Fight First ability. Now we'll come a little bit more than that later. So, a bit more on the charges thing that they elaborate within the article. The target of your charge must be within the distance that you would measuring base to base. So, smaller bases charging bigger base things like, say, Imperial Knights, for example, or Imperial Knight Armigers, have a bit more flexibility because obviously it's going base to base and they have much bigger bases. And if you can get within an inch of a model, you must do so. But if you can't, you only have to be in engagement range. So, ideally, if you end within an inch, you have to. If not, and you're 2 inches away, you're still in engagement range and technically you're still in the fight. But what this engagement range does do, so apologies, is eliminate that I'm going to stand an inch away from the wall malarkey. You can still use terrain to mitigate how many models can fight, but you can't use it to ensure a failed charge now. And I get to have a graphic here, so showing off basically explaining a unit declares a charge and the charge will generate a maximum distance of 7 inches. Unit A is within that distance, so can be selected as a charge target, but wouldn't be able to end its charge move engage with this unit after moving around intervening terrain. So moving onwards into graphic B, I mean, yes, it's hard to explain, but you'll see this in the article, which again I will link in the description. Another change they're making is ingress moves, which covers things like special deployment things like deep strike coming in from strategic reserves, that sort of thing. Now, basically how this has changed is you can set up within 8 inches of a target rather than the current 9. So you'll still need, using the example here, you'd still have to roll a 9 to successfully charge out of deep strike, but your landing zones are bigger and you have a lot more flexibility with that. Piling moves also see changes. So piling moves are now done before the fights start rather than each time a unit is selected to fight. The player whose turn it is resolves all their pilings first, shuffling units 3 inches to get as many as possible into the engagement range, followed by their opponent. Now, the actual fighting itself works pretty much identically to how it's always done, but the order has changed. And the more significant part of this is the player whose turn it is gets to pick a unit to fight first, including if a unit, one or either unit, has the fight first rule. So if your unit charges, they're always going to get their licks in first regardless, even if the unit they're charging has the fight first rule. So once all combatants for fights first have taken their swings, the person who would normally be next in line gets to pick from the rest of the crowd, regardless whose turn it is. So some pretty big changes there. Again, some graphics are easier for you to look at within the article. And then you have fight. Then I mention here in fights where you have lots of individual parts and separate units involved, your troops might find models that were previously engaged with who are dead by the time it's their turn to fight. But when it comes to fight, they can do a special overrun fight, which essentially gives them a second pile-in move. And then once all the fighting's done, consolidation moves are all made at exactly the same time. Similar to piling moves that can be used to manoeuvre further into combat, leap on an enemy unit within 3 inches, or dash to a nearby objective. But that comes with a risk of if you engage a new enemy unit that hasn't fought yet, they still get a chance to get their licks in despite all of the other fighting being done. And that pretty much concludes some of the significant changes coming to the assault phase in 11th edition Warhammer 40k. So, what do you guys think? As always, let me know in the comments and I shall catch you in the next video. Sayonara.